a very warm welcome to all of you for this curtain raiser on this very important BIMSTEC conference. The Government of India and the people of India attach extraordinary importance to the linkages, both historical and current, that have developed around the Bay of Bengal and across this community of nations that we call BIMSTEC. We share the common goals of peace, prosperity, and progress. And because we share these common goals, and because we have learned the lessons of history, we know that if we have to make the Bay of Bengal, the Indian Ocean, the real power center for the 21st century, to make it a pivot of global and human progress, that we have to work together to achieve these goals. And in working together, in ensuring prosperity to all our people, we recognize, and this is going to be in some ways the centerpiece of the conference that we'll be hosting in Guwahati, that trade and business and commerce are really going to be the engine that are going to be able to drive prosperity and closer collaboration and linkages across the BIMSTEC countries. There's been some very interesting research on how geographically trade, commerce, and business develop. Sanjeev Sanyal's book, The Ocean of Churn, where he talks about the ancient trade and commerce linkages that have always existed across the Bay of Bengal, and the very tight cultural and social linkages that have existed for centuries among us. So we have a great history to build on, we have great traditions to build on when it comes to trade and commerce. And we also know from very careful empirical research that has been done over the last few decades that if we have to strengthen trade, we have to strengthen business, then connectivity is vital. That connectivity is vital to the development of these linkages. The growth of Indian railways across India had a tremendous impact on India's economic activity. And the careful empirical research that has been done on this has shown that the districts that were best connected during the British Raj were the ones that progressed the fastest, that there were the least disparities among these districts because agricultural prices and living standards started to converge very quickly. Now, because the potential for trade and the potential for trade in a Ricardian view, that is on the basis of comparative advantage across the Bay of Bengal countries, the BIMSTEC countries, is of such importance and has so much potential, we really have to focus special efforts on connectivity, and we are certainly doing that. As far as India is concerned, we have poured tremendous resources into both road and rail linkages. You know that the Honorable Prime Minister just inaugurated a very important bridge across the Brahmaputra, the Hazarika Bridge, which has cut travel time dramatically because of the connectivity that it provides. You know that we are extending our road networks not just across the northeast, but also over to Myanmar and then over into Thailand as well as we can. And we are pushing broad gauge railway lines everywhere across the northeast, and we are opening up our trade connectivity and our linkages with Bangladesh as well, and really starting to build common networks with them, whether it's on the road side or on the railway side. So these networks, this connectivity is happening at an accelerated pace. And Excellencies, we want to work with all of you in the BIMSTEC countries to forge even tighter, even stronger, even more efficient, even more effective connectivity linkages across road and rail. But that's certainly not enough. I think we are adding two other aspects to this connectivity that will really enable us to take a great leap forward. And the first one I want to talk about is waterways. I was just in Guwahati. I was in fact having a number of meetings there and spent a lot of time with the Honorable Chief Minister on how we are really enabling the Brahmaputra, not just in India, but right down to Bangladesh, right down to where it flows into the Bay of Bengal, to be able to provide both upstream and downstream linkages for freight and for other purposes. And so we think waterways, particularly in this region of big rivers, rivers with plenty of water, rivers that have spread all over this region, are going to be vitally important as well. And under Shri Nitin Gadkari's leadership, we are really, really revitalizing the way in which people have thought about waterways and really making them an integral part of this transportation network. So waterways, I think, are going to be a very important aspect of forging this connectivity of these closer linkages. I will come lastly to my subject, and that is aviation. So road and rail, of course, are vital. Waterways will be vital also for freight, for timber, for large bulk commodities. But ultimately, and I'm saying this of course because I have a parochial interest in aviation, but if we want high value economic agents, business travelers, tourists who are going to spend money, if we want them to move around freely across this area, the need for very good linkages as far as air travel is concerned is absolutely vital. Now we have just launched the UDAN regional connectivity scheme. Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. We were very, very fortunate. Honorable Prime Minister Sahab inaugurated this program with the first flight in Shimla in several years. And you'll be very pleased to know that there are a number of airports in our northeast, including, for example, Pakyong in Sikkim, including the airport in Shillong, that are going to be part of this UDAN regional connectivity scheme. And we made it so attractive, for linking these tier 3 and tier 4 towns that our airlines are rapidly buying smaller aircraft so that they can be able to build these aviation linkages across our towns. And what I think, and as Government of India, we would like to be able to do, is to see whether we can take the thinking, the policy design behind UDAN and extend it across the BIMSTEC region. So if we can link Pakyong in Sikkim, there is no reason why we can't link an airport in Bhutan or an airport in Myanmar in the same fashion. And we already have an open skies agreement across SAARC, so that you can freely fly to all the SAARC countries. And what this conference and what this set of discussions is encouraging me to do, at least, is to take forward the idea perhaps of having an open skies agreement across BIMSTEC as well, which I think would be a great step forward, because then we can mount flights across this entire region without any issues about negotiating air services agreements, and that will let another one of these barriers fall. And so if we can combine a regional connectivity scheme where we are providing certain subsidies and certain measures to boost regional connectivity, along with an open skies policy across BIMSTEC, my hope would be, my expectation would be, that we would be able to connect up many of these towns in this area of the Northeast and Thailand and Myanmar, Bhutan, Nepal, and so on, with each other as well. So it's not just a question of flying from Pakyong to Guwahati or Calcutta. From Pakyong, I'd like to be able to connect Paro as well. And from Pakyong, I'd like to be able to connect Imphal or even Yangon and so on. How do we encourage those linkages as well? And here, because we've been very, I think, progressive in our policies to be able to enable smaller aircraft also to come into India, which in the past was a lot more difficult because of certain restrictions and policies that we had. We've enabled turboprops now to come in at a very affordable price into India. And I think these turboprop aircraft will be very valuable and will be very helpful in forging this regional connectivity. And as you all know, as all of us who've traveled in the Northeast know, that even if it's a short distance of 50, 80, 100 kilometers, the reality is with the hilly terrain and the congestion that we often get in these kinds of areas with the landslides, with all of the weather and natural issues that we have to deal with, we end up in a situation where even 50 kilometers, 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers can be a 6-8 hour journey. And this is where air travel makes all the difference, whether we do it with jets, whether we do it with turboprops, or whether we do it with helicopters. So I think we should really start to think in a very visionary way, in a very open-minded way, about how we can really forge these tight aviation networks across all of these countries. And then, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, the tremendous potential for working together for the purposes of peace, prosperity, and progress to be able to trade, to do business, to do commerce with each other, will be further accelerated and further deepened. And I'm very hopeful we can work together to achieve that. Thank you very, very much for coming together and really figuring out how we can move our agendas forward. And I very much look forward to being with all of you at our conference in Guwahati as well. Thank you again, and a very good evening to all.